attention. We're actually going to be bringing you game number 5 of Dog versus chrisw, who is a tavern hero in this tournament.
Right, yeah, chrisw doesn't have too many accomplishments under his belt yet. He's hoping to build his name for him here, coming in from the tavern hero place, and we kind of started off that series between them and been watching it all the way through. First game was the mage from Chris versus the rogue from Dog. Typically would be mage favored, but Dog was able to upset Chris, taking the win with his rogue over the mage in the back of an Edwin. Game 2, Chris has his mage yet again, and Dog queues up his priest, where the mage was actually able to upset the dragon priest. Typically, dragon priest is pretty strong versus Gunther mage and can kind of outvalue them, but a quick Alex on 9 into just followed by all the burn. Things were just really looking forward and lining up for Chris. And then game 3 was the druid from Chris, Jade Druid, versus the Jade Elemental Shaman from Dog that you can kind of see him playing here. It's kind of a mid-rangey deck, doesn't really commit to the full Jade or commit to the full Elemental package, and just wasn't able to keep up with the growth of Jades from Chris's Jade Druid. And then game 4, the Shaman from Chris versus the Priest from Dog was really a roller coaster of a match where it looked like the Shaman was going to take it with Evolves and Bloodlusts, but a well-timed Potion of Madness from Dog into Primordial Drake was able to shut down all of that, leaving Chris with just Bloodlusts and Evolves in his hand. And now we're all caught up. It's game 5, the Shaman mirror between these two guys.
Very different Shaman decks. Dog has that half Jade, slight Elemental package with really just Fire Elemental, Firefly, Hot Spring Guardians, and Kalamos. So just like a splash of Elementals in there. And then Chris's is the aggressive Doppelgangster Evolve Shaman build. So very different ends of the Shaman spectrum here.
Yeah, I was talking to some of the guys backstage when I was looking at this Evolve Shaman from Chris, and I was like, I don't know about this deck.
I know you're not the biggest fan. I know you're not.
I look at the cards and I'm like, this is wacky. There's 2 copies of Bloodlust, 2 copies of Doppelgangster, 2 copies of Evolve. These are cards that you don't normally see in, you know, decks in general. And if in any, it's usually just like a one of Bloodlust. So the amount of late game in this deck, the amount of things that allow you to be successful when you snowball a board is really high. So if you're able to ever kind of take this Shaman off the board as Dog, then he's going to have an easy road to victory, as there's not that many reload cards, and there's a lot of cards that capitalize when you are ahead.
Yeah, this Shaman deck it's very similar to the one that RDU brought last week to the Europe playoffs, which he did make top 4 with. So he did qualify to Shanghai with an aggressive Bloodlust Shaman build. It did not have the Evolve package in it, so that just really gives you higher blowout potential, I suppose. If you can Doppelgangster and Evolve, you get 3 6-drops on board, which can range from a 1/1 big-time Racketeer to something like a Karen Bloodhoof. So there's a wide variance on what actually comes out of your Evolves. And if it goes well, then you Bloodlust and blow out the game.
Right.
But that's a big if.
Sure. And it's not going well for Chris right now, as his board just got completely cleared by the Devolve Maelstrom Portal combo from Dog. One of the things that Shaman's great at is getting on the board, but another thing Shaman's great off is keeping things off the board with a bunch of tools available to them. We can see in Dog's list, he does not have key cards such as Lightning Storm that would be fantastic here, and he doesn't have like Volcano. These are cards that you'd really want in this matchup, so not having those is kind of a bummer, but he does have the Maelstrom Portals. Those are super crucial to helping remove the board, as we just saw, and he has Kalamos for the later stages of the game, where he can really just shut down a big board, acting as, you know, an 8-mana Lightning Storm plus a 7/7 body.
Yeah, Dog also has a copy of Bloodlust in his build, so it just seems like both of these guys trying to really find finishers in their Shaman builds. A lot of the time, Shaman can really struggle. It can get on board and it can stave off board presence, but it has a tough time closing out the game in a lot of cases, just because the Jade package is limited in Shaman versus Druid, where it is essentially unlimited. So Bloodlust giving you that finishing power, but it's very expensive. It clogs up the hand in the early game when a deck like Chris's wants to be flooding the board, and then if your board gets cleared, you're kind of left without any resources. Mana Tides are the only source of draw in this deck.
Right. Dog has to be a little afraid here of potentially that Evolve combo coming out. It is, the chrisw does have the mana available to get the Doppelgangster Evolve if he has it, which his deck is looking to try and do, but it's not there for him now. Now, one of the things Chris really has to be looking for is opportunities. Where can he use this evolve to stabilize a powerful board? Is this an opportunity right now, maybe, where he could just try and set up a Bloodlust lethal for the next turn with the evolve? You don't always have to save it for the Doppelgangster combo, especially knowing the fact there's no Lightning Storms in the list for Dog. So if you're able to actually get a resilient board against Maelstrom Portal, which a lot of 2-drops are, maybe that's just enough to close it out with the Bloodlust.
You do always need to be a bit wary. There's the chance that you can shoot yourself in the foot and evolve 1-drops into Doomsayers.
Okay.
That's always, you hate to see that situation happen,
yeah.
But sometimes you do need to just put all your cards on the table and go for it.
Right.
Couple of 2/3s, couple of 3/2s with a Bloodlust can finish a game.
More often than not, it's not Doomsayer. I would really love to see him just push for it right now. Just try and get a board that'll stick around the potential Maelstrom, and you're able to get a board out before Kalamos can come down, and just push for the Bloodlust lethal on the following turn. But it looks like Chris is going to hold back that evolve. He's going to be trying. Oh no, maybe he's going to go for it. It looked like he was trying to value trade the patches.
He's not going to go for it.
Evolve.
This does open you up to a spell damage Maelstrom Portal from Dog. Of course, Chris did see 1 copy already, so may not be too worried about that second one, but it's something you want to keep in the back of your mind. Yes, Evolve is incredibly valuable with Doppelgangster, but when you don't have Doppelgangster, you need to play with the cards that you do have.
Right, yeah, I think it's just, he's being a little tentative with the Evolve there. We saw actually the same thing in his previous game against Dog's Priest, where he was really patient with the Evolve, didn't end up using it, tried to save it for the Doppelgangster, and then he ended up getting blown out by a coined Primordial Drake, and that might just happen again here, as Dog does that have that available for him for the next turn. The Maelstrom Portal back to just wipe back down Dog's board, redevelop his own. Another opportunity where you have to ask yourself,
do I just go for it?
Do I evolve? Is it enough stats on the board? Am I going to get out of range of AoEs? What 2-drops am I going to get? A lot of 2-drops are 2/2s, 3/2s, but some are 2/3s, and they live through the AoE. And even now, though, you've seen both of the Maelstrom Portals. So what are you expecting as Chris to have to play around for AoE? I guess he might not do the Evolve now because he's like, you're out of Maelstrom Portals, you have no way to clear the board.
The only other natural board clear in Dog's deck is that Kalamos for the 3 damage AoE effect. The Primordial Drake is not something that Chris is necessarily thinking he needs to play around, but in this case, it is going to do some incredible work.
Right, he's just going to take the Kalamos while it's activated. He doesn't have any elementals in his hand to activate it later on, and that is going to just wipe the board for Chris, leaving him with that Evolve a little bit stranded. If he picks up a Doppelgangster, he still has action, though. But the hand really, really weak. All of these cards that work well while you have a board, and no board to be had.
Thing from below can be evolved into a 7-drop. Not much, I think, that you really want around 7, though.
No, you're definitely, at this point, we're committed. Chris's game plan the entire game has been, I am saving this Evolve for the Doppelgangster. His thought process was, Dog's going to use his AoE to stop me from killing him with Bloodlust. That's fine, and then I'm going to find Doppelgangster Evolve, and punish him for using his AoE. And he just hasn't had the cards to fulfill that game plan. He hasn't really adjusted on the fly. And, I mean, it is unfortunate for Chris, too, that Dog happened to have the only 3 AoEs in his deck.
And obviously, you need to have a game plan going into a game. You want to understand what your win condition is.
Right.
And in this case, your strongest medium of board presence is Doppelgangster Evolve. But you know that Dog is running a much more controlling list that will outpower you in the late game 10 times out of 10. So you need to get your footing early while you can.
I agree with you. I think the exploitable thing for Chris, what he could have done to kind of abuse Dog's deck list was just knowing there's only 2 Maelstrom Portals for AoE. When you know there's only those 2 Maelstrom Portals for AoE early, there's the value of just 1 additional health on your minions potentially from Evolve starts to become a really big factor, and I think he could have pushed that a lot harder in the mid game. There were opportunities where he could have tried to set up a Bloodlust lethal and just adjusted from the normal game plan of, all right, let's try and find the Doppelgangster Evolve, and changed it into a game plan where it's like, well, I know you don't have Storm, so I'm just gonna get you. But this should be smooth sailing for Dog now.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a way that Chris comes back on this board. Even if Doppelgangster is drawn, 3 6-drops, that don't all have taunt would mean that Dog is just able to kill
Right.
Chris on the backswing. And this Knuckles hitting face for 5.
Yeah. He's got 16 damage that
14,
can go
15,
forward.
16, yes.
Yeah. And what's the comeback mechanism for Chris then? I guess it's something off Evolve. That's really his only way out. If he's set down to 2, it's going to be very difficult for him to win. One thing he could be thinking about is devolving into a Doomsayer for Dog. So if there's a 3-drop on the field, Dog needs to try and make sure there's not. It doesn't appear to be one. So that's not a potential out for Chris. It's going to be rough. Maybe there's something off Evolve that can save him, but he does have the devolve to try and find, but no 3-drop that could downgrade into a Doomsayer.
No, and those are underwhelming results, but they are going to be good enough. Kind of a shame that we didn't get to see an Evolve in this game, but I think maybe your feelings about the deck might have been
Well, it had an
on the
opportunity.
right
It had a
track.
window of opportunity this game where
It did.
it could have taken it. And as well against the Priest in the previous game, which wasn't on stream, but we got to watch, where it's exact same situation for Chris. And he stuck to his guns and had the exact same game plan in that situation. He's just always waiting for the doppelgangster. He's always playing very mechanically, sticking to his game plan, which works a lot of the time, but when the deck lists are revealed, what a great player will do oftentimes is adjust their game plan, change what they're doing to react to what they know is in their opponent's deck, and they can really take advantage of that. And I don't think Chris was able to do that well enough.
Yeah, unfortunate for Chris. He will go down 0-2 thus far in this tournament, so not looking too good for him. But Dog is still alive, 1-1, moving into round number 3. We are going to get into game 4 of another match.